GRIDLIFE's home has long been the Midwestern United States. With the popular Midwest Festival at Gingerman Raceway in Michigan and the classic Midsummer Meet at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, we've stayed true to our roots over the years while expanding east and west. Tonight, we're doing some pre-holiday fun at Mid-Ohio with some Rallycross cars. Pairing some off-road action with one of our classic facilities, there's no off-track penalties tonight. That means anything goes. Don't hit your buddies, but find the shortest way around the track through the gravel, sand, dirt, mud, grass, and maybe a little pavement, and you might go home a winner in GRIDLIFE iRacers. Hi, everybody. Kyle Heyer, joined by Andrew Cardinale IV tonight. Andrew, welcome aboard. Mid-Ohio is a classic facility for GRIDLIFE. Tonight, though, something a little unorthodox. Rallycross cars off-road here at Mid-Ohio.
Unorthodox is a great way to put it. Kyle, thanks for having me. Yeah, we've got Rallycross cars, Mid-Ohio, no track limits. The only time they have to worry about those track limits, the white lines on the racetrack, though, is qualifying, which is up now. Cars are making their way on track. It's just set to be a night of fun, and I think that's what everybody needs going into Thanksgiving.
Yeah, a little different format this week here because the Rallycross cars can only carry so much fuel. That means we're going to do 10 minutes of qualifying and then 3 8-lap races. We're on the Mid-Ohio short course tonight because the feature race, or races plural, drivers can use any route possible. And with the opening at the exit at turn number 1, everybody figured, well, let's just use the short course because that's where we're going anyway. So you ride on board down here into turn number 1 at the Cooper Tires Bridge. Here you got to stay on the pavement here in qualifying, as you alluded to, Andrew. You got to keep all 4 tires on the road, but then you take this right-hand turn here through the kind of the short keyhole up onto the back straightaway where we typically start our GRIDLIFE Touring Cup races, and then you're off to turn number 4, Andrew, which is perhaps your best passing opportunity here at this racetrack.
Yeah, watching Paul Darling work his way to China Beach, and I think absolutely that heavy braking zone right-hander is going to be your best chance to pass. But if you're daring, you might get it right down here at the bottom of the hill, heading into some of the S's, and certainly you want to get it done before Thunder Alley, I think. That's just going to be a little bit risky.
Yeah, Paul Darling, of course, is one of our competitors in GRIDLIFE Touring Cup. We've seen him in Time Attack in the past as well. Super successful in iRacing. Tends to be, pretty calm, cool, and collected behind the wheel, but he's incredibly fast and super humble as well. But tonight, this is going to be a challenge to be humble out there, Andrew. You got to get those elbows out and really push and shove a little bit, especially through the tighter corners. It's going to be 5 wide on these starts. All 60 people that are here tonight are going to get a chance to race, so you're going to have to be elbows out and be aggressive. And we'll see if Paul can handle that. Typically, he's up front. He'll lean on you if you lean on him, but he won't be the first person to instigate that.
Well, he goes 4th quick on the board behind Kevin Langer, Jameson Huffman, and Brenner Del Mar. So already you're getting kind of an order of who's quick and maybe who needs a little bit of work throughout the course of the evening. And here is Kevin Langer on pole currently, and that is definitely a paint scheme, Kyle. I like it, though. Funfetti on the side.
It looks great. It's easy to spot. That'll help tonight. Alessandrini to the top and is quickly bested by Austin Cobb. Both of those drivers are competitors in GRIDLIFE Touring Cup. There's a quick look at Austin before he jumps off as we get now a look at the Ford Fiesta of DJ Alessandrini, who has won here in GRIDLIFE Touring Cup equipment as recently as 2021. Heads up over the top in his classic Red Bull livery. He runs on almost everything. As, again, on the pavement, I think Austin and Alessandrini are probably the two of the guys you'd pick to win tonight, but as soon as you open up all the off-track areas, the rumble strips, the gravel, the grass, it's fair game for everybody, and I think it's going to be a call of who can send it deeper and keep it going with the momentum through the rest of the corners, Andrew. I don't think it's going to come down to who's the best on the pavement.
Yeah, and of course, we're going to have a whole lot of happenstance tonight. We're going to have a whole lot of circumstances to talk about where guys are going to make a little bit of contact. They're not encouraged to. In fact, that's kind of the one rule, right, is that they cannot make contact, at least not intentionally. But it's going to happen. We know that. And we're taking Rallycross cars and throwing them all over the place at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. So it's bound to happen a time or probably 20 as these guys have their fun tonight. And that is Alex Coffard way out into the stand there outside of turn 1. Most of these drivers, it seems like, have wrapped up their qualifying efforts, but here's Jameson Huffman in the top 10. Giovanni Romano as well on track, and Giovanni might even be a little bit purple as he heads down to China Beach.
Yeah, Giovanni Romano was a competitor, Andrew, if you remember from the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada series with the HJ Motorsport Group, and that's also where Crawford runs. And I think Alex messaged me a couple of weeks ago after our first kickoff for the GridLife iRacer series and was really excited. They're planning on building an HJ Motorsport car for GridLife competition at some point in the future. They race a lot in the real world in other categories and really excited to bring those guys on board. The gateway to GridLife, Andrew, for a long time has been GridLife iRacers. Alessandrini, Cobb, and more raced here before they raced in real life with GridLife, as Tom O'Gorman goes 5th fastest, Andrew, 2022 GridLife Touring Cup champion.
And quickly pulls off the racetrack, already towed back to the pit lane. Some more cars on track. We've got 54 of them in total. At least that was the count in practice. That's probably changed by now. Here's a look at Darian Taggart's Volkswagen Beetle. And, you mentioned the fact that HJ Motorsports is very much in the real racing world already. And, yeah, I recall seeing those blue and yellow colors all over iRacing, but also at the VIR 24 a few times. So, very familiar with seeing those blue and yellow cars on track. Dennis DuPont, currently 23rd quickest over Val DiPietro and several other drivers. Just the list goes on and on. Literally, we're scrolling for quite a ways on the timing screen. There are so many guys ready to throw down tonight.
It's a full pack of cars. I also saw Dana Masinski down in 14th. Glad to have him back with us here this week. Dana, competitor, runner-up this season in Falcon Club TR competition in his K-Swap BRZ. So glad to have Dana back with us in the iRacing ranks here this week. Paul Darling jumped all the way down to 10th. It is tough at the top. Matt Corrence goes 6th quickest here late in the session. Another driver that joined us in the sim before he joined us in the real world and GridLife Touring Cup for a couple of rounds this season. So quick racing tonight, Andrew. These cars don't have a big fuel tank. That means we're running 3 8-lap races. Remember the rules here. There are none. Don't hit your friends, but any surface between the walls is fair game. Cut the track, run wide on the racetrack, get airborne over the top of somebody. Any of that is totally fine, and I think drivers will get very creative here on the launch of this.
Drivers are gridding up now. Austin Cobb on pole through qualifying. Kevin Langer in the 2nd spot. Then DJ Alessandrini, Alex Crawford 4th. Over Tom O'Gorman, the 2022 champion here in GridLife, in the 5th spot. Mackenzie Corrence in 6th. On through Jameson Huffman, Giovanni Romano, Brenner Del Mar, and Paul Darley making the top 10 in qualifying. And yes, we're at 56 cars now, all the way back to Ryan Dunham, Ed Harris, Christopher Derby, and some others at the very back of the field. They've got some work to do. In fact, here's the last place qualifier, Ryan Dunham, car 32, way back here. He is not even really into the carousel here. He's not even close yet.
Well, we'll see if he can get there here as we get gridded up and get ready to go racing. I saw 2 of the Not Fast Motorsports cars also in the grid, a little bit deeper in the field. Those guys, especially Peter Zhang, have had some really good runs as of late, Andrew, as we get set for the green flag here. This will be 8 laps as whoever can finish them fastest on track or off it here at Mid-Ohio.
Just waiting for all 56 cars to grid, and usually we're waiting on like 20 or 30 cars, or even 40. It's not this long. Usually, we're waiting on just 1 or 2 here and there, but it looks like still 5 or 6 guys maybe tuning their setup or who knows what, getting ready for racing. Tom O'Gorman seems to be one of them. Oh, his car just popped in, so we're getting a few more on the grid. Ian Giebler and some others, it looks like, waiting, but we might have. I hear them revving up, so I think we're close as the timer runs out. And yes, green flag is out. We're racing at Mid-Ohio in race 1.
All right, down towards turn number 1. 56 cars already 3 abreast in their Volkswagen Beetles, Fiestas, and Subaru WRXs into the first corner here. 8 laps underway, and through the dirt we go into turn number 1. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Look at skidding and sliding Alessandrini through the grass and back onto the road again. Great run through turn number 1 for those front runners, and it's side by side for second right now as they head down to turn number 4. 4 wide in the back.
It looks like a land rush down to China Beach. 4 wide is right, and somebody is around in the back, but they're not really around. They get back going. A bit of a drift there through the 4th corner, and there we go. We start to see some of the corner cuts that these guys take to the grass to find their quickest line. This is really special. There we go. Already massive contact. That's DJ around.
Alessandrini spun backwards and into the inside, and more cars slipping and sliding off course. There's one of the HJ Motorsport cars off to the outside of turn number 7. A couple more cars slipping and sliding. We're bound to see this tonight, but you have to get through it, get back on throttle, and carry on and continue. One car broadside across the road now, stuck at turn number 9.
This is definitely one of the more unique things I've ever seen on iRacing. They just cut through the grass, and of course they'll be clearing those flags, and man, this is definitely a sight to behold as they work down to the first corner for lap number 2, and already a couple of breakaways. Austin Cobb, Alex Crawford way out front. They're finding quickly that maybe the grass is a little bit slower as they spin their tires down to the inside. Tom O'Gorman, though, locked in a battle, it looked like for a moment, for 3rd. He might have taken the pavement, though, as Mackenzie Corin's tried the grass. I'm not really sure, but all these guys just trying to find their spot.
Yeah, Correns is up a couple from the initial launch of the race, and they head down to turn 4 again. I'm surprised. I thought there'd be more cars off at China Beach in turn 5, but you see the walls kind of pinched together there. I don't really think there's any advantage. Certainly at turn 6, 7, and 8, you're going to want to straight line this as much as possible as they head over the hill. Look at the 37 car, Bueller, sailing over the crest, airborne there in his Volkswagen Beetle.
Thankfully, that car is settled down, and you got a quartet of Beetles headed through Thunder Alley right now, ready for the carousel, going to cut through the grasses. Well, 3 of them, but one stays on track. That's Langer staying on track in the Funfetti machine, and now he gets off into the grass, trying to cut some of that corner, and it works out much better that time as they all cut on through the dirt. Austin Cobb now opens up a 1.5-second lead out front over Alex Cofford, so already splitting things up in the front.
And looking really good as he tucks it in tight. That's definitely a rallying strategy there to get really tight to the inside apex and throttle back up. Cofford, O'Gorman, second, third, then Corrence, Bueller, Langer, Darling, and one car upside down at turn 1.
I can't quite, well, it wasn't Dana Baczynski. That may have been Darian Taggart. I'm not sure. Somebody flipped over, and I couldn't quite tell who. Langer stopped back here. That is Langer on his lid.
Well, that's belly up for Langer, one of our top running qualifiers there in the qualifying session. He went for a wild tumble as we ride on board with one of the ASM cars. That is Dana Baczynski in the number 20, up to 6th place. He qualified 14th, Andrew. This is a great climb for him, the Club TR driver from Track Battle Time Attack.
I recall he made a great impression on me at Autobahn back in June when he set a couple of really fast laps in his FRS. Is it FRS, GRE? I forget exactly which one he has, but regardless, he was quick.
Yeah, he was super fast. Remember, that was the Autobahn moment was one of his most popular wins because he came sliding out of turn 15 at Autobahn, dead sideways, just in time to crack a record and really put on a show there for the fans trackside. It was a cool moment for Dana. Certainly one of the highlights of the season is looks like he went for a little bit of a slide and dropped a position to Paul Darling, who qualified down in 10th, and he's up 4 spots now into 6th place.
It's actually a nice little battle between these two as they work into the 6th and 7th positions, respectively, are Darling and Baczynski.
And back through the grass again. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, the grass isn't really all that grippy. It just happens to be the short way around, so it's pretty easy to get these all-wheel drive Rallycross cars sideways and then not get any front drive out. You have a really hard time getting forward bite, but here they are, side by side now, running through Thunder Valley up to turn number 11. Dana on the outside, Darling on the inside. They're going to bang doors there through turn number 10. Baczynski goes for a wild slide and just keeps it off the tire wall.
Meanwhile, ahead of these guys, Corinz and Bueller, look at this fight right behind. I don't know if that's a lap car. That has to be a lap car into turn 1, and he's going to give way on the inside, or at least try to, but they're not allowing that to happen. They cut through the inside, through the pit exit there, and one car, Corinz, way down to the inside, trying to cut all that corner.
Yeah, trying to make this a little 3-wide action here as Corinz gets just a great drive off of the Subaru, so he's going to clear up to 4th. Continuing his climb from his 6th place starting spot now as they head to turn number 4. Again, through this area, the pavement seems to be the fastest way, but as soon as you get to turn 6, you take that right and you straight line it all the way to 9.
On board here briefly with Mackenzie.
Great shot there, watching him at work. You're going to be probably exhausted by the end of this, just trying to maximize the speed around here and get the slip angle right to get that forward bite that I talked about. Oh, contact there.
Paul Darling.
And bam, Darling goes hard into the wall at the exit of 9.
Oh, and he comes across. Oh, that was cardinal sin almost of sim racing, coming back across the racetrack like that. But at this point, these guys can kind of just do whatever they want. And Darling gets back on track, loses a few spots, but only drops down to the 8th position or so. That's really not that bad, given the circumstances. Bueller still fighting with, or around Corinz. Actually, Corinz goes way off track out of the final quarter and loses that spot.
Oh, I saw Baczynski turned around there as well on the front straightaway, so he's had a little bit of an issue. Drops down to 8th place, but gets back rolling. The goal of tonight is just to make it to the end and just continue to keep your car rolling. We still had 38 cars on the lead lap last time by, which is more than I thought. I think that's Corinz tangling with somebody there on the inside. That is, what is going on here down at turn number 1? Oh, they're all piling in.
Oh, no. Oh, man. Yeah, 3, 4, 5 cars and somebody stuck in the fence on the left side. That is definitely, I think, the most unique position I've seen a race car in. Who is this?
Who is that?
Sam Alvarez.
Down in 46 and having a bad day. He'll probably just hang out there until the end of the heat. Here's the good news. race 2 is inverted, so he might get the benefit of the doubt there and get a chance to get a good launch here on the second race, which will kick off in just a couple of laps. We're on lap 6 of 8 right now as we sail on through. Austin Cobb now getting into some heavy lap traffic.
And here's a look at things. This is much different to Le Mans with the slower prototypes and GTE cars, but it looks relatively similar. Same kind of concept, right? Got to try and pass those cars on the straight lines when you can and just be patient in the corners, and it's working out so far. As actually Tom O'Gorman has just taken over the second position. I'm not sure what circumstances that would have been in, but given that cluster through the fake keyhole, I think maybe a few lap cars got in the way.
Let's keep an eye on that gap, though. He's down under 4 seconds in his number 94 car, so we'll see if he can reel in. I see that gap growing very quickly and back down again as they all sail through the dirt. It's hard to really know if the intervals are accurate or not because of how much they fluctuate over the course of a lap here. There's a good look at Crawford in the 17 car in third, and then Bueller just behind as they head up over the hill there and head back towards turn number 10 and 11. We have 2 laps to go. Next time by should be white flag here, Andrew, as we go back up to Cobb and O'Gorman sailing through the last couple corners.
Here's on board of Tom O'Gorman out of the final corner. And 2 laps to go.
I think that was that the white.
And actually, that's white flag, actually. I was going to say the race timer's down to a minute. So these guys are on the final lap now in race 1. And Tom O'Gorman, I don't know that he's going to make that gap up, but he's certainly going to give it a shot as he works back onto the back straightaway. We might get an idea of just how far back he is. And it's somewhere around the 3-second mark, which I think he's been closing in for sure, but not by enough.
He took a big chunk out of it last time by, about a second out of Cobb's lead. Lost it a little bit here again. And the gap, that's a lap car in front of Tomo there. So he's not quite close enough, but this will be a good standing for him to start off the night with. He'll have to go to the rear here when we invert the field. As we jump back, there's DJ Alessandrini clawing his way back through the field, but Austin Cobb just got off to a great launch. And actually surprised, he was on pole, Andrew, and never looked back. Didn't have any traffic to deal with until he got to the lappers, and only a couple of corners left for Cobb to pick up a win tonight.
Yeah, it pays to be lucky in this case where he really didn't have to deal with anybody. Obviously, he earned that spot fair and square, but got a really clean start at the beginning. Easy checkers for him.
Austin Cobb wins race number 1 here for the GRIDLIFE iRacers Tuesday Fun Run. And O'Gorman comes across second, then Crawford third, Bueller and Corrence 4th and 5th. Ido Waxman, a Club TR time attacker with us in GRIDLIFE 6th place. Darling in 7th. Alessandrini rebounded for 8th after that horrendous start. Adam Corrence 9th, and Dana Basinski a top 10 in his number 20. A good run for him. So look down the rest of the order here. More finishers than I would have thought, actually, Andrew. There was only a handful of drivers listed as out, all things considered. That was pretty successful for race 1.
Yeah, really, most of the field is going to come to the checkers, whether it's a lap down or on the lead lap, what have you. We're going to have 30 cars, actually, on the lead lap, if not 31, with Morgan Burkhardt potentially. So 30, 31, right in that number as the whole field comes on through. You see everybody coming across and finishing. Somebody takes a header. That is Giovanni Romano in car 99. He gets back on and is going to finish 22nd. Just behind Blake Fitzgerald and Austin Tucker, who we lost those spots to. But so many more drivers coming to the finish right here. Shane Vickery, Richard Sawicki, and, well, time ran out.
Yeah, that was a fun one to watch, actually, especially towards the front. There was some interesting tactics. The line seems pretty standard, though, Andrew. I'll say that I think I was expecting some more variation, but everyone seems to have scienced out the mathematical best way around this track. It seems like staying on the road through the first corner, and then you're going to bail off to the inside, just get around that wall, and then at turn 4 and 5 you're going to stay on the road. Turn 6 though is where you start to cut the track, and then the whole backside is really where you gain your time. But it seems like it's a bit more of an art than a science at this stage, with drivers slipping it out of control a little bit too much, or maybe under rotating and ending up in the tire bundles there.
Race 2 heading to the grid. DJ Alessandrini is going to be inverted to the front of the field, it looks like. So I don't think it was a full invert.
It was an eight-car invert. Sorry.
There you go. I was going to say, yeah, Waxman is in the second spot. Darling, yeah. So 8-car invert, not too crazy. And you know what? I think that minimizes some of the craziness we could have had on the start. Imagine all 56 cars inverted. It would have been fun.
It would have been, well, fun for somebody. I'm not sure it would have been fun for the guys having to get inverted all the way to the back. But Alessandrini, the beneficiary of that invert number, which was generated beforehand, but he managed to land it. Waxman in second, Darling third, Corrence and Bueller, and we're off and away. Another 8 laps on the board here, Andrew, as we head down to 1.
Look at the entire field already. Some issues in the back. Cars going all kinds of different ways, and unfortunately, they're not seeing a clean start. But up front, look at this land rush through the kind of faux keyhole, if you will.
Oh, through turn number 1 and now heading up onto the back straightaway. It is getting wild now as they head down to turn number 4, and it looks like out front it should be the driver that launched there on the initial start. That is... Apologies for the technical difficulties there. Just an iRacing glitch that has not yet quite been sorted yet. But we're back on track as Alessandrini leads the way, and just a couple seconds behind. It's O'Gorman, Darling, Corrence, and Moore all battling for second, third, and fifth. And Corrence goes around and into the concrete hard on the backstretch there as we follow Paul Darling off into turn number 3. Corrence gets back rolling, but he's going to drop all the way down to the bottom of the top 10.
Jameson Huffman also turned around out of the keyhole here, and he gets back going. Oh, man. Takes one with him, maybe 2, maybe 3, as the Funfetti machine is turned around there as well, Kevin Langer, but gets back going in car 89, and we keep on trucking. Tom O'Gorman right back in a familiar position here from race 1, Kyle, but a lot closer, trailing by only about 2 seconds.
Yeah, he might actually have a little bit more pace than DJ here, too, so we'll see if he can reel him back in. It's only 1.7 seconds, now 1.3 seconds as they enter the carousel. Less slip angle I'm noticing on Tomo's car versus Alessandrini, Andrew, so that might be a beneficial adjustment to make, is to not have the car so sideways. Behind him, though, Bueller and Darling kicking off a fight. And how about Dana Basinski up to 5th place? He is absolutely rocking it tonight in that number 20, just moving forward in that ASM Beetle.
One car stopping for a moment, I think that was Bueller, but he gets back. He just, the way these guys slide, it drops their speed to 2 miles an hour, and it kind of freaks me out for a second. But they continue on. It's one of those things I look for always is single digits car speeds, and we switch to them real quick, but it's just the way these guys are sliding, especially through that second quarter. It's kind of crazy these guys are keeping going the way they are. This is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we're getting there as we watch Dana Basinski chase down the cars in front of him here. Again, it seems like there's a certain amount of slip angle that you want to have, and you get a little bit beyond that, and then it gets too hard to control, too hard to carry forward momentum. And off into the carousel again in this inside line here. This is the biggest challenge, the biggest stretch of grass that you're on. You're trying to change your angle mid-corner here, so you're effectively drifting on grass, and the grip level is certainly reduced. People always talk about how drifting is gripless, but drifters will tell you how much grip you actually have to have and how you have to control that grip very carefully. And here in the grass, you just don't have a lot of grip as there's a bunch of cars turned sideways here at 1. Everybody scatters, and as
Alessandrini's in that. He was a big part of that, Kyle, and he drops all the way to the 9th position, 8th position, and he's going to get a run here on Austin Cobb, it looks like, who won race 1, but the challenge on to turn 4, it's not really a challenge yet.
So Tomo picks up the top spot, Bueller to 2nd, Basinski up onto the podium spot in 3rd, then Darling, Hill, Cofford, Cobb, Alessandrini, and the Corrence brothers 9th and 10th as it stands. Adam leading brother Mac at the moment. 9th and 10th in position. But DJ's got some work to do. He finished 8th in the last race, 8th in this one, and chasing the race 1 winner, Austin Cobb, over the crest at Thunder Valley.
Got a bit of pace, it looks like, on Austin Cobb as well as they come into the carousel here in a moment. And it looks like Cobb scoots away for a moment, but DJ's got a chance here, I think, on corner exit. Yeah, pulls right to him for a moment at center and trying to get out of the corner. They're about even now as they head up over that jump in the grass. There's a one jump, I guess. It is a Rallycross race.
Yeah, you got to get that forward bite. It seems like that's what it's all about, is getting that forward drive when you're in that slide here. And up the inside, there's a big battle for spots here at turn number 1. Basinski loses one. Alessandrini is going to gain one and then lose it again immediately. Now a drag race up to turn number 4. That is one of the HJ Motorsport cars up the inside. As tangles and sends one of the Purple Beetles off for a little bit of a slide. Is that Adam Corrence there in the number 10?
That was Lucas Hill, actually. He booted off the course for a moment. Austin Cobb slides in behind him now. So 4 or 5 cars in a row, it looks like, as they fire through. And oh, that's Austin Cobb way out into the gravel.
Oh, that was the death wiggle. You get it too sideways and you just can't turn it back around the right direction. So Cobb will get back rolling. He'll stay in the top 10, but just 9th place. Now 10th as Tucker squeezes on by in the 243, but that was a costly mistake for the driver of the number 36.
Let's quickly head back up front. Tom O'Gorman headed to turn 1, and we're at that 2 to go mark that we kind of filtered back up to the leaders last time. This time, though, a much larger lead for our current race leader, 7 seconds, heading through the carnage there in turn number 2.
Yeah, he had to run a little bit wide there to avoid the cars that were tangled on the inside, but Bueller and Darling are not making progress on O'Gorman's lead at the moment, so Tomo continues to have that top spot. 3.4 seconds is the differential here, and next time by should be the white flag for them, so the end is near for people trying to run down Tom as he tries to sprint away here in this chaotic race.
And it looks like problems again for us, but Paul Darling with the offense here on Alexander Bueller falls back a little bit there through the entry to Thunder Valley, if you will, heading up over the crest, and finally Bueller pulls away. Heading around lap traffic, though, cuts the left, going to come back and cut the right. And as long as he heads, keeps steady on the throttle, I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, Darling had too much angle there and slowed way up. Basinski on the inside, taking the short way around right up next to that barrier on the inside. He's got the HJ Motorsport car, Cofford, right ahead of him. And as they head into turn number 1, it's going to be a dive up the inside for Basinski if he can make it stick here on that HJ Motorsport Fiesta. The HJ car runs a little bit wide. Dana's got the inside for a moment, but not the overlap and drive off he needs to pull that off. White flag, one more lap around Mid-Ohio.
The gap up front, by the way, is dropping a little bit. Tom O'Gorman is definitely dealing with traffic. Look at this that he's having to deal with, Kyle, trying to head on through all of this. This is not easy in Tom's position, and he's definitely losing time. I don't think it's going to be enough, but we're down under 3 seconds nearly as these guys head through the grass.
Oh, look out, tangling in front of him, and Tom's got nowhere to go but through it. And car slipping and sliding. He's going to dive to the inside and try to get by him. Has to slam the brakes, but Bueller still 3 seconds back. He's got 2 corners left to get it back to the stripe.
Oh, Tom away to the inside, and that was a lucky bounce from whatever car hit the barrier in front of him. One lap car gets by. He's nearly going to get Tom, but he gets on through unscathed by just a couple of seconds. He will keep the win over Alexander Bueller. That was close, and Darling slams the wall there right at checkers.
He's got 3rd, so O'Gorman, Bueller, Darling, your top 3, then Cofford, Basinski, Hill, Alessandrini, Corrence, Cobb, and Tucker, the rest of your top 10 there, Andrew, in a wild one, especially at the end. That lap traffic proved to be pretty difficult for Tomo to have to navigate.
Yeah, I kind of figured that would be an issue at some point. It was a matter of when. We didn't really have too much in race 1, but clearly I think these guys starting to get their druthers about them and just... they were all trying to run their race, right? But it was right in the way, unfortunately, of Tom, and thankfully he gets through without too much issue.
Alessandrini's 8th to 1st inversion didn't help him out too much. He finished 7th in that one, led a couple laps early, and then got tangled at turn number 1, something O'Gorman was able to avoid. So DJ will get one more shot. We have one race left on the night to navigate before we finish out the evening. And now this is going to be straight grid from race 2. So that's going to put O'Gorman, Darling, Basinski on the inside row. Throw Alessandrini there as well as Corrence. The outside will be Bueller, Cofford, Hill, Cobb, and Tucker. And again, we're going to fire them up all over again. But now they've got some experience. They've learned some things that they can apply to this final race. And I think at this point, it's going to be about as about as calm as it's been in the top 10, at least. I think they've sorted it out.
We'll get ready for race 3 finally. No invert here, which means Tom O'Gorman is in a very safe and familiar spot, and that is up front in front of the entire GRIDLIFE field, whether it's iRacers or, GLCC. I think he's just familiar in that spot.
Yeah, certainly. I think you got the wheel experience will certainly help you out in a situation like this, but the chaos is so unpredictable when you get to lap traffic. You don't know what's hiding around every corner. The walls are not exactly designed to be seen around, Andrew, especially at turn number 1. If you go around that very tight corner where the wall basically just comes to an end, there could be cars littered all over the place, and you can't see until you get there. So you have to be anticipating that and keeping an eye on your relative screen to be successful at this as we get set for our last race of the night. 8 laps on the board here as the field grids up.
Waiting on the green lights. We've got red currently, waiting for the start of this race, the flag to drop. Tom O'Gorman on pole, Alexander Bueller, and green flag is out. It's a land rush back to turn 1.
Here we go again. As we head down to turn number 1, O'Gorman leads the way. If he can get free and clear of the pack behind him, he might make it. There's some cars tangling in the back, but the rest of the field sails through the first corner for the first lap. 8 more to go as we head into turn number 1. O'Gorman trying to put some distance on the field as we head down to turn 4, the first major passing opportunity, first major passing zone, as we got one car, all the cars tumbling and crashing left and right.
Yeah, all the cars is definitely a good way to put that as we finally head through turn 4, turn 5, and really into the meat and potatoes of this course. You can see everybody just struggling to find their line and get room, actually, on the racing line, if you will, even though maybe it's the lawnmower racing line.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to find any ground you can get, and if that's to the inside of the guy and you've got some space, go ahead and use that. Darling's got 6/10 to make up on O'Gorman early here, but I think Tomo, with clear racetrack ahead of him and no lap traffic to boot, he might be able to get some distance on Darling and Crawford, but as it stands, that gap has shrunk a little bit here in the final corner.
Paul Darling close behind as they head back down to turn 1 for the second time in race 2, and a bit of dab a break there for Tomo, heads over the grass. I think you want to try and stay on the pavement there through turn 1, but then it's quickly into the grass and gravel as Paul Darling puts on the offense, but can't quite hang on exit.
Yeah, Darling trying to make up some ground there. He did it on entry, but it always come down to forward drive to the middle of the corner. If you get too much angle and you just try to be too aggressive with it, it will bite you. Some of the drivers have been using the handbrake, Andrew, the feature on these cars where you can kind of yank the rear brakes and tighten those things up. I don't think that's a great strategy because it gets you too much angle too fast, and it's just hard to control the exit acceleration, which is where you're going to make your speed. Something that Tom knows how to do, maybe not in a Rallycross car, but he's done it in his S2000 all year long, and that will transfer, even in such an unorthodox setting, back to the road here at Mid-Ohio tonight.
On board with Tom O'Gorman, looking back at the rest of the field, you can see Paul Darling driving through the iRacing glitchiness a little bit, but hanging right there with Tom O'Gorman. This seems to be the best form we've seen out of the front of the field all night long. Finally, we're seeing like 5, 10, even 15 cars. They've settled in. They have a few reps around this place, and they're truly racing now at this point.
Yeah, at this point, they've figured out all the tricks to the trade here, and it's just about applying what they've learned through lap traffic and trying different surfaces and that sort of thing. Darling is still about a half second to 6/10 of a second behind. He's not losing, not gaining, but I think at this stage, Tomo is going to have a pretty solid, constant lead. Bueller and Cobb battling for 4th. This is a pretty good fight between these two. Cobb won the first race, got tangled up in the second race, and wants back up into the top 5 here for race 3.
Bueller hanging steady currently in that 4th position. Cobb, Corintz, Tucker, Lucas Hill, and even DiPietro and Del Mar, the rest of your top 10, as you can see on the left side of your screen on the ticker. And there's battles all the way through this field, but it's just that the best ones currently are up front in this top 10, and this is a really good one, actually. Here comes Austin Cobb on the inside.
He tried it. He couldn't quite sneak down the inside there, but Bueller has got a run here on Crawford for 3rd, and while they fight for the podium spot, Darling and O'Gorman are able to drive away and put some more distance. 1.3 second advantage to Darling over Crawford now, and that's a distance that Darling is going to enjoy because he can focus his efforts forward on catching O'Gorman. Only 3 car lengths between the top 2 at this moment.
Back up to your top 3. O'Gorman into the 4th corner, and actually they're side by side now. Austin Cobb to the inside of Alexander Bueller. Gets there on the right rear. There's overlap certainly, and they're properly side by side headed up over the crest at turn 5.
Yeah, see if Austin takes the big shortcut here. A lot of angle on entry to try to get that short run, but you see the little bit wider run actually worked for Bueller, and he's able to carry some more speed. Now off into turn 9, Cobb up the inside, a little bit more angle, and trying to get the run here, but couldn't quite do it.
Let's go on board with Cobb, actually, as he works from the 6th position, at least if iRacing will cooperate. He was solid for about 5 seconds. I thought maybe it was going to work out, but regardless, he's in a really good spot. And just, well, actually, he's got a whole lot more pace through that corner and nearly had the position there on Bueller. Now going to have to cross up, look to the left side in turn 1, hangs steady, hangs patient, and patience definitely, I think, is key. Just put pressure on the guy in front of you. He's going to slip up at some point.
Yeah, and at this stage, I think Bueller might be likely to do that here if Cobb continues to pressure him, especially at turn number 6. I think if you get the driver to falter there, you can get underneath him at turn number 9. You can turn in super early and just make a big dive and try to get him to look up in the mirror and distract him for a second. The same thing you do right here at 5. There's a little touch there as Cobb gets into the side of the 37, and now it's a race down towards turn number 6. Bueller shortcuts it, Cobb cuts it more.
Cobb going to have the run on the pavement there, and he's going to clear that 37 car finally. So move Austin Cobb up, but not so fast. What a lunge there out of Bueller.
A big lunge by Bueller, and he took it back with force. Didn't like how he got knocked out of the way, so he'll repay the favor and put himself back into 4th place. Cobb will have to run him back down. No changes up front. O'Gorman, Darling, Cawford, your top 3. The battle right now is for 4th as we watch these two skid through the grass at the carousel section.
Cobb closed back in, but it's not enough for now. Just up ahead of these guys, Paul Darling, Alex Cawford, they're holding tight in formation. Darling through the grass, lap traffic there, stopped in the dirt as well. And, man, just kind of craziness. This is a lot of... This, I think, should be an annual thing, maybe, that GRIDLIFE does. Is just ahead of Thanksgiving, ahead of Christmas, whatever, just get together and literally just balls out like this. Just have fun at Mid-Ohio. I like this.
Less cars, maybe next time.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We every time we've tried something like this, Andrew, we find a way to break iRacing, and
yeah.
we haven't been able to break it in a little while. So maybe our annual thing is figure out how to break iRacing and putting 60 Rallycross cars off road. It certainly seems like a way to break it.
And it was so good in race 1 too, but it seems like GRIDLIFE just said, nah, we're gonna break something this year. Yeah. But hey, you know what? It is a simulator, and no fault to iRacing. I think there's always problems in any program that you might write. I don't think you can ever write a completely faultless program. So they're always fixing things, and there's a whole lot more fixes coming in the December build coming up in what, a week or 2 weeks. I'm sure this will be on the list to be addressed soon. It's just sometimes things happen.
Yep. So 2 laps to go for the race leaders. And 0.2 of a second between O'Gorman and Paul Darling.
And Cawford just got the barrier.
Yeah, he was trying to get to the inside of Darling and just took a little bit too tight of a line and caught the end of it right there. You see him catch it again there, and it's going to loop him around. And he was running in 3rd, but he's going to drop well outside of the top 3 and the top 5 now down the order.
Well, once again, look at the car 94 out front. And it looks like somebody towed to the pit lane and briefly got first away from Tom O'Gorman, but Tom is hanging on to this first spot pretty well over Paul Darling, and this is just right where we expect the car 94. It fits the bill.
Yeah, he's done a good job tonight, certainly, and looking very consistent. And I'm sure without the traffic in your way, you're actually probably enjoying getting creative around here. Maybe I wish there was a little bit more gravel to slide through, because that seems like a pretty fun surface. But now the gap is only a couple tenths of a second as we get the white flag last time around Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for tonight. Last lap of the last race. And Paul Darling and O'Gorman are back to battling again. We've seen this in a couple of different leagues this offseason.
Oh!
And here comes Darling with a big punt to the back of O'Gorman through turn number 1.
Shot in the shorts there in turn 2, and nearly got O'Gorman off of his game, but Tom hangs on, and we've got lap traffic ahead to have a little bit of fun here in the last couple of moments. Last lap, this time through China Beach. And Tom is just hanging steady right now. Watch that black and yellow Volkswagen Beetle behind him, though. I don't think the contact is over just yet.
Maybe not yet. As O'Gorman heads up over the crest towards turn number 9. Lots of lap traffic, just like the end of race number 2.
And the Thunder Valley cars crossing the racetrack, cars off on the left, off on the right, and in the middle in front of Tom O'Gorman, but they're also holding up Paul Darling. That's the thing, is even though you're second place, yes, the leader might get held up, but you'll get held up too, and Paul Darling just a little too far back. He's going to give it a shot. He's there, but it's not going to work for Paul Darling, and Tom O'Gorman wins again.
Oh, super close at the end there, but Tomo does it 2 in a row. Darling was only 3/10 back as they came to the start-finish line. 2/10 back, actually, as they crossed officially. Bueller, Corrence, the rest of your top runners there. That was a blast at the tail end of that one, Andrew. Paul had a shot there at the very end. Maybe if Tom had been a little bit less aware of the traffic, he might have gotten there. But Tom knew what he was getting into there at turn number 14. Took a really tight line and was able to protect that position.
All of the 50-some-odd car field is to come back across the start-finish line and wrap this one up, and it looks like just a couple of lead lap cars left to go, and then a few in the very back, and this entire field will have crossed the start-finish line to wrap up race number 3. And a night of racing at Mid-Ohio, Kyle. I think one that we definitely like the concept, and maybe something to bring back in years in the future.
Yeah, I think the concept here was actually really interesting, and I think it worked out pretty well at this particular track. I think there were some things we learned about format and how to maybe keep a reasonable amount of cars on the road. I think 53 is probably too many, as someone goes for a space flight over there at turn number
4.
9, or turn 4 rather. Yeah, but it's. Yeah, I think there's something here. I think there's something really interesting about the way these cars raced, and I think despite some of the silliness we saw that we were expecting up front, the top 10, they had some legitimately great racing, Andrew.
Yeah, there's definitely a good racing product here, I think, that should be taken advantage of and should be noted for the future. I think maybe in smaller numbers, smaller batches, and, just a tad more organization, I suppose, as far as working through a set of heats. I think you could have a really solid night of racing, and you could even mix around the car, the track. You could run trucks, potentially, the Lucas Oil off-road trucks at some of these road courses. It doesn't necessarily have to be Mid-Ohio, but I think everybody here likes Mid-Ohio. I think they all have decent experience, whether it's in the real world or on the sim. So there's some parts and pieces that could definitely be moved around and kind of finagled with, if you will, to find some really good racing. I think you already have it a little bit, but maybe just, I think, a longer heat format, get everybody a little bit of TV time here, and it'd be a good night of racing.
Absolutely a fun one, Andrew. And final thoughts on this. I think there's more to this. I think we could come back and revisit this again at some point in the future, but tonight that was all we had. 53 cars times 3 races here at Mid-Ohio with the Rallycross efforts. Next week, though, as we continue our Tuesday fun runs here in the GRIDLIFE iRacer series, we head off to Watkins Glen's Cup course, the classic configuration with the 1987 stock cars, for a little back to the 80s rumbles with the stock cars. That'll be a lot of fun, Andrew. Can't wait for next Tuesday. And that's coming after our 2023 rules release Q&A session that will happen at the Car Club. We'll be streaming that live to Twitch at 7 p.m. Central next Tuesday, January 29th. So make sure you tune in for that. 2023 rules for GRIDLIFE Touring Cup and Track Battle will release on Monday, November 28th at noon. Make sure you check out the GRIDLIFE blog post and join the Discord. Link is in the description here on YouTube if you'd like to join and check out those rules when they launch. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight. Andrew, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week at Watkins Glen for the 1987 stock cars.